Want to tip the host? Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description. Get a free Houston Sports State of the Union podcast t-shirt with a donation of $50 or more.
This is the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, the president of Houston Sports Nation, Nick Stevenson.
My goodness, thank you. Please be seated. My fellow Houstonians, welcome to the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. I am the self-appointed president of Houston Sports Nation, Nick Stevenson, and welcome to this State of the Union address for the week of March 24th. It's opening day. Today we're going to discuss Astros versus Yankees. The Joe Espada era has begun. How you feeling about it? You guys wanted to get rid of Dusty. Well, now he's gone. We're also going to discuss other baseball news. Shohei Ohtani bets that we won't. Hey-o! But we will. He's going to lose that bet. We're also going to talk about the Rockets. They are on a 10-game winning streak. And the Houston Cougars will be competing in the Sweet 16 tomorrow. Are they going to be intimidated by the prestige of Duke? Well, there's only one way to find out. That's why they lace him up and they throw the ball up in the air. And what do we think the Houston Texans should be doing in the draft? We will discuss all these things and more. But I appreciate you so much for being here. As always, there's 1,000 things you could be doing tonight. Just really quick, let me address the fact that every time I try to schedule one of these podcast events, for some reason, as I start streaming, it just goes haywire. And I think the issue is probably the streaming service that I'm using. I'm not going to mention them by name because I don't want to throw shade on anybody. But whenever I just start a random stream without planning ahead of time, without telling you ahead of time, without sending you invitations, all of a sudden it seems everything works perfect. So, lesson learned. I think next week, I'm just going to let you guys know via Facebook, via Instagram, via Twitter, what time the show is starting. And let me just start trying to schedule these ahead of time because obviously that's causing a problem. But I thank you so much for being here if you are here. 9 times out of 10, if the links that I'm sending you guys aren't working for some reason, that's making us feel defeated. And I get it. It makes me feel defeated too. But whether you make it here or not, I have a job to do. I have a listening audience as well. Once again, if you guys want to support the show, there are many ways to do it. One of them you're doing already. Listen, watch, share with your friends, share with your family. If you love them, it's the thing to do. The other way that you can support is by my tip jar. There is a QR code here. Or if you go into the description of the video that you are watching, there is also a link to the tip jar there. You can leave anything from $1 to, I believe, $150. Anybody who leaves me $50 or more will receive a t-shirt. That reminds me, for those of you who have done that, your t-shirts have come in the mail, and I will be hand delivering them to you this week. Another way you can support the show is by using the affiliate links. Also, in the description of the video that you're watching, you will see links to the featured fan gear of the week. There's Houston Rockets, Houston Texans, Houston Astros, Houston Dynamo. Any of that gear that you decide to purchase with that link, it's going to give a little cha-cha-cha-ching to the show. And I will very, very much appreciate that. And then the other way that you could support the show is by sponsorship. Once again, your business could be on this ticker right here above my head. Your business could have an ad that plays before the show starts. And I promise you it won't freeze. I think figured this thing out. So thank you guys so much, though, for taking the time out of your day. Many of you probably just got done watching the Houston Astros. Many of you probably have had a few adult beverages, if I had to guess. So there's plenty of things you could be doing. You could be passing out on your couch. You could be watching Netflix. You could be chilling. Who knows? But I appreciate so much that you guys are checking out the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. If you guys want to hop in the chat, I would be very, very curious to know what you guys thought about Astros versus Yankees. As a matter of fact, what are we waiting for? Why don't we just go ahead and get into the state of the Astros? All right. Unfortunately, the Astros lost to the Yankees 5-4 in their season/home opener. If you guys watched last week's episode, I expressed to you that I was concerned about Framber Valdez. He got his third opening day start, and it started off okay. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Framber Valdez threw more balls than he did strikes in this game. And that is usually not a recipe for success. I'll get into the things that I liked about the game. I'll get into the things that I didn't like very much about the game. Starter. Let's start with the positive. Why don't we do that? I thought the Astros were very aggressive on the bases, and I think that is something that we were all looking forward to when Joe Espada took over. There's a couple of times, let's say the first time it stood out to me is Jeremy Pena's first hit. And Jeremy Pena's first hit, he probably could have settled for a single, but he decided, no, let me stretch this thing into a double, and I appreciate that. I always appreciate aggressiveness, and he forced the left fielder to try to make a good throw. I believe, who was playing left field for them today? It was not Stanton. I think Stanton was DHing. But yeah, he caused them to make an errant throw. So that aggressiveness got him on second base. And that's the type of thing we wanted to see from the Astros for certain. There was another time. Oh, it was Yainer Diaz. He was aggressive, tagging up at second and going to third on a relatively hard hit ball that he could have rested on his laurels and stayed at second, but I think Joe Espada is coaching them to be aggressive. Obviously, the play in the ninth inning where Dubon was thrown out at home, that was an aggressive move. He could have held up. He basically forced Juan Soto to make a perfect throw, and he did make a perfect throw. Now, I'm not entirely sure that he tagged him, but at the end of the day, rules are rules. If there is not clear evidence that he was not tagged, then they're going to have to stay with the call that was made on the field. So now the not so good. Framber didn't look good, man. He was not good at all. Let's take a look-see. He pitched 4 2/3. He gave up 5 hits, 3 runs, all of them earned. He did strike out 6, and he now begins the year with a 5.79 ERA. That is a market improvement. I can't believe I'm about to say this. That is a market improvement over his 7.71 that he had in spring training. So we're doing better. This is a positive move forward. The president of Houston Sports is supposed to help you see the silver lining. And that is what I'm desperately trying to do. He wasn't good. He struggled. He threw a lot of balls. He had a hard time. He walked. You can't walk 6 people. You just can't do that. And I think of those 6, I know he walked in a run, and then I think he hit a batter to bring in another run. It wasn't a great outing for Framber, and I wish I could say that was not expected. But unfortunately, that is what we have come to expect from Framber Valdez. Who's pitching tomorrow? Are we getting JP France tomorrow, or are we getting Javier tomorrow? I know he's pitching. JP France is starting one of these games. You'll have to forgive me as I check this in real time. I thought that I had this looked up already. Yeah, Javier is pitching tomorrow. I don't know why I thought France was pitching. Maybe because I was watching an interview where he said he was pitching against the Yankees, which, I mean, there's still 2 more games, so he very well may be. Framber wasn't good. Martinez wasn't good. he got lucky to even get out of the inning he was in. He walked another batter. Montero gives up a home run. Newsflash. Breaking news. Presley in the 7th was weird. That was just weird. And he wasn't good. He gave up 2 hits and a run. You know what I did like? That Jake brought his rake. Jake Myers was given the start and he delivered, man. And I think that Joe Espada wanted to instill some confidence into him by putting him in the starting lineup, which begs the question, why did you not allow him to hit in the 6th inning when you pinch hit John Singleton? He was asked that after the game. I don't have a clip of his interview, but the only answer he gave is first he had to gas up Jake Myers because, of course, make sure Jake Myers doesn't think that I don't think he can produce in that situation. He just thought that who the pitcher was, the matchup, the analytics, will you? He thought that John Singleton was the better move. Very similar to a move that was made in the ALCS last year that many people gave credit to Joe Espada for because Dusty had gotten ejected from that game. And this was the pinch hit and at bat that led to Jose Altuve's eventual walk-off homer. Well, I'm sorry, not a walk-off, but a game gave them the lead. It ended up being the game winner. And at the time, everybody said that wasn't Dusty, that was Joe Espada. And they all said that because it worked out. And maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. However, this time, it didn't quite work out. So I think it just goes to show what we all should understand is that managers manage, but players play. You put the player you think is going to be successful in each situation, but at the end of the day, they have to deliver. And you can't make the same move in game 1 of this season just because it worked out for you in the ALCS. And now this is what remains to be seen about Joe Espada. Is Joe Espada going to have the ability to have the feel for the game that Dusty Baker had? I don't know if he will. I hope that he will. Is he going to go by the analytics every time? And if he goes too much in the direction of analytics, a lot of people felt that Dusty Baker was too much in the direction of old school gut feeling. I think if you go too far either way, you're probably going to frustrate a lot of fans. But at the end of the day, that's the decision he gets paid to make. And it didn't work out this time. If it worked out, he'd have looked like a genius. That's how it always works, right? But it didn't work out for him, unfortunately. So the Astros take the loss. I can't really think of anything that the Yankees did well. I mean, the Astros out-hit them. They took advantage of the opportunities they were given, for sure. That was a hell of a throw by our favorite guy, Juan Soto, to throw out Dubon. But it felt more like the Astros lost this game than the Yankees won it. And that's one of those sports cliches that I actually kind of hate, but it's true. Like, I don't feel at all as if the Yankees really just dominated that game. And I'll give Nestor Cortez credit. He settled down after giving up, a 3-spot in the first inning, and then he gave up another run in the second. After that, he settled down, and the Astros just couldn't muster up any more offense. But I don't think that's why they lost the game. I think they scored enough to win. You can't give up as many walks as they did. And other than Hader, which, let me just say, speaking of things I did like, Hader's legit, bro. He comes in, he strikes out 3 in a row, and his first game as an Astro, like, that's what you paid him the big bucks for. How about we do that when he's got a lead? Because if we do that, the Astros are going to win a lot of games because that dude is nails. I'm wondering if Presley struggling was just not used to being in the spot that he was in. I don't think Montero would have been in the game if Brian Abreu was not suspended because of what happened in the ALCS when he pegged I forget the Moof Milker's name who ended up jacking a home run off of him later. But yeah, Garcia for the Texas Rangers. So I don't know. It's just, look, man, it's the first game. But I think the things that we were worried about in the preseason are the things that ended up coming to fruition. The Astros starting pitching struggled. The middle of the bullpen was a little bit shaky. And but thank goodness that Hader was nails, man. So they play again tomorrow. Tomorrow is a night game. 7:10 is the first pitch. It is going to be Javier versus Rondon. Rondon was another addition. Look, the Yankees missed the playoffs last year, and they went and did what they do. They spent some money. They're going to try to bounce back. I don't know how good they're going to be, though, because like I said, I don't really feel like they did a whole lot that was great. I feel like the Astros really kind of gave this game away to them. And I know that makes me sound like a homer, but if you watched the game, you saw the same thing that I did. So I think that tomorrow is a good chance to bounce back. It's time to see what Javier's got. Is he going to have a bounce back season? Pena also, I mentioned, he got a double. He got a couple of hits. So the new swing, like maybe that's going to work out for him. There were some positives to take away from the game, but all in all, anytime you lose, especially on opening day, if anybody was at the game, tell me how much you spent on those tickets just to watch the Astros lose. I'm curious. Ooh, that stings a little bit. So yeah, we'll see. I do want to talk about some other baseball news before we move on. But if anybody in the chat wants to tell me their thoughts on the game, please do. I see Billy Taylor and Aaron Childs in there. What's up, guys? Aaron Childs saved my show last week, by the way, and I want you guys, if you have an opportunity, go check out Aaron Unfiltered on Spotify. He does his own podcast where he talks about pretty much any and everything, but if you want to know anything about wrestling, talk to Aaron Childs. Matter of fact, if I ever do a segment on wrestling, bud, that's probably the show I'm going to bring you in on. So, in other baseball news, if you guys haven't heard, Shohei Ohtani is in a little bit of hot water. Where do I start with this? So, I know that some of the people who watch and listen to my podcast are not super, super huge sports fans, excuse me. So, let me just start by saying that betting is something that is recently a part of sports. If you watch any sports right now, there is almost always going to be ESPN Bet, DraftKings, some type of fantasy betting website. And most of these leagues have decided, okay, we can't stop people from betting on these games. By people, I mean the general public. So we might as well make some money off this stuff. Let's get in bed with these companies. Let's keep it legal. Let's tax it. Let's help some of these states get some revenue. So there is legal gambling in sports. However, it is, and always has been, a big no-no for the players or the referees or the officials or the owners, anybody who's involved with the sport. It has always been a big no-no. You don't get to bet on games. And in the sport of baseball, the most infamous, in the sport of baseball, the most infamous case of betting on sports comes from a gentleman by the name of Pete Rose. Now, Pete Rose just so happens to be the Major League Baseball leader in hits. Many people consider him one of, if not the greatest hitter of all time. He played for the Cincinnati Reds. He later went on to manage that very same team. When it was discovered that he was betting on the games that he was both playing in and that he was managing in. Now, according to him, he never bet against his team, so he was never accused, I believe, of throwing any games, betting against his team, and then making sure that they lost. No, according to him, he only bet on his team and he only bet for them to win. But once that was discovered, no, that's not allowed. Pete Rose, possibly the greatest hitter of all time, was banned from baseball forever. All of his records, there's no mention of him in the Hall of Fame. He was not inducted into the Hall of Fame. It is as if his baseball career, on paper, did not exist. So this is the precursor to what I tell you now. Even if you're not a sports fan, you've probably heard the name Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani is a baseball sensation from the country of Japan. He is what you would call a unicorn. There was myths about him long before he ever made it to MLB. There were legends about him, and everybody knew that eventually he was going to make his way to Major League Baseball. And the only question was, where's he going to go and how much money is that team going to throw at this dude? Well, he wasted the first 6 years of his career with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, but he put up really good numbers. If you are a baseball fan, obviously you know this. You know that he and Mike Trout broke a whole lot of MLB records just to lose. It felt like every time you turned on the television, whether it was ESPN, Baseball Tonight, MLB Network, they were telling you about some record that Shohei Ohtani and or Mike Trout broke in a loss because their team was just trash. And, you know, a lot of people considered at the time Mike Trout to be the greatest baseball player in baseball. Shortly afterward, I believe the consensus right now would probably be that Shohei Ohtani is the best baseball player in baseball right now. Now, many of you are Astros fans, so you might want to argue up against that. But the dude is literally in the running for MVP and the Cy Young and the home run title and the batting like every year. Like the dude, he's a video game cheat is what he is. Maybe it's not so coincidental that I use the word cheat. If you guys are not familiar with the story, being from Japan, excuse me, I'm over here punching my microphone. Being from Japan, Shohei Ohtani does not speak English. Therefore, when he came here to the States to play in Major League Baseball, he had an interpreter. And I believe this interpreter is someone that's been with him from the very beginning. I'm not going to attempt to say this dude's name. You can Google it, and if that makes me not a good podcaster, not a good sports journalist, well, who said I was a journalist? This is a show of fans. I represent you, the fans, because I am a fan. But anyway, his interpreter was found to be allegedly stealing money from Shohei Ohtani and using said money to gamble on sports, including baseball, including games that Shohei Ohtani pitched in. And according to Shohei Ohtani, he knew nothing about it. Once this came to light, I'll give you his quote. Shohei Ohtani says, "I never bet on baseball or any other sports. I've never asked anybody to do that on my behalf. I've never gone through a bookmaker to bet on sports. Up until a couple of days ago, I didn't know this was happening. To summarize how I'm feeling right now, I'm beyond shocked. It's hard to verbalize how I'm feeling at this point." The story alleges this was discovered because the FBI was investigating an illegal sports book in Los Angeles. And the way the story goes is that Shohei Ohtani's interpreter sent a wire transfer of $4.5 million to this illegal sports book. And Shohei Ohtani says he knows nothing about it. All right, bro. Listen. I don't know about you, but I know if somebody took $4.50 out of my bank account. Now, granted, I don't have the amount of money in my account that Shohei Ohtani has. This dude just signed a $700 million contract, which begs the question. Well, if he's making $700 million, I imagine he's probably paying his interpreter pretty well. Like, why the hell are you gambling? But the question is, do you really believe, do you really believe that Shohei Ohtani had no idea that this was happening? I'm sorry, I can't buy it. Mr. Ohtani, Shohei, I'm sure you're watching, man. I bet you're a big fan of the show. You really want us to believe in 2024, in the age of the internet, the smartphone, mobile banking, mobile alerts, text message alerts about anything that happens in your, like, I'm broke half the time. And I at least get a text message that says, hey, bro, you're still broke. You ain't got no money. Like, the bank notifies you of everything that happens in your bank account in 2024. And if you really think that I'm going to believe that you had no idea that $4.5 million was transferred from your account to this illegal sports book. Hey Siri, how do you say you got me up in Japanese?
In Japanese, you got me up is あなたは私をめちゃくちゃにした
I'm sorry, bro. You have to run that one by me one more time. What was that?
あなたは私をめちゃくちゃにした
I'm a Toma Choka Toma Chuck Chanista. Yeah, that's what you got me, Shohei. You got me Chuck Chanista, bro. There is no way in hell you did not know that $4.5 million came out of your account. Like, if you'll buy that, I got some oceanfront property in Arizona, baby. Like, there is no way in hell. So here's the problem, though, with this whole situation. The problem, I don't want to say problem. It's a problem for Rob Manfred, who is the, it's definitely a problem from Rob Manfred because Pete Rose, who we talked about earlier, has been trying to make his way back into baseball for decades now. As a matter of fact, every year he goes to the Hall of Fame ceremonies and inductions, and he signs autographs, he signs merchandise. Like, there's a whole army of people that want this dude in the Hall of Fame. And he hasn't been let back in. Like, supposedly betting on baseball is the unforgivable sin. So the question is, now the FBI is still investigating, MLB is still investigating. The question is, what's going to happen? If they discover that Shohei Ohtani was betting on baseball, is Rob Manfred going to have the balls to ban probably the best player in baseball right now, his number one money getter? Believe that. This dude is bringing in money from all over the world. He is a cash cow to Major League Baseball. Is there any chance in hell that this dude is going to ban Shohei Ohtani from baseball forever? I doubt it, bro. I really doubt it. As a matter of fact, if I were a betting man, listen, if there was a photo or video of Shohei Ohtani turning in the sports book ticket himself, and you had a real good shot and you could zoom in on it, and in his other hand, he was holding his work visa and his driver's license, and he was no doubt that Shohei Ohtani was the person who was making this bet on baseball, I don't think he would get banned from baseball. I think the next day, Rob Manfred would be like, you know what? I think Pete Rose deserves to be back. Let's put Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. Why? Why would he do that? Because of money. And Shohei Ohtani is in Los Angeles. He's playing for the Dodgers. You're going to screw up the Dodgers? They just gave him a bajillion dollars. I don't know how to spell that. I'll be checking the transcripts later. They just gave him a bazillion dollars, dude. Listen. I don't want to be a hypocrite. The Astros were involved in a cheating scandal in 2017, were they not? Yes, they were. They were involved in a cheating scandal. And they got taken to task for it. Like, I think this year is the first year I've seen a national Astros promo for the MLB, or I've seen an Astro in a national promo for MLB. Like, they've just completely blackballed. Even if you guys play MLB The Show at all, there's like no Astros in the promo. I mean, the Astros have pretty much been blacklisted, even though they're one of the greatest teams in baseball over the last decade. I'm sorry, man. I will be shocked. This is what I think is going to happen. I think this interpreter is going to be Shohei Ohtani's fall guy. And whether he was betting on baseball or not, it's never going to come to light. And they're going to protect him at all costs. As a matter of fact, my buddy Craig Rouse said so in the chat himself. And I tend to agree with him. Nothing's going to happen to Shohei Ohtani. When you have that kind of power and that kind of influence and that kind of money, the things you do just kind of go away. So, the good news is Shohei Ohtani is not in our division anymore, so he won't be a problem unless we make the World Series again. That is, if the Dodgers make the World Series. But, I mean, they're always going to be a contender. Dude, I don't know, man. It kind of ticks me off. But that being said, as far as baseball is concerned, as far as the Houston Astros are concerned, I'm sure they'll be watching carefully to see how the league handles other people who break the rules. Because, I don't know. I tend to think there's some people who think they weren't harsh enough on the Astros because they didn't vacate their championship. I think the Astros have been through enough. I think it's time to move on from that. Are we going to meet any of these other people with the same energy that we had for the Astros, though? That I'm not sure of. Okay. Really quick, I don't know if there is anybody in the chat. So I don't know if you guys saw when Trevor Bauer pitched against the Yankees the other day. He went scoreless, gave up a couple of hits, though. He walked a couple guys. I'm rubbing my eyes like when I was a baby. That's what I used to do when I was tired. Given what you saw from Framber Valdez, should the Astros be going after somebody of the likes of Trevor Bauer? Now, Astros fans hate Trevor Bauer, and they should. Speaking of the Astros cheating scandal, Trevor Bauer was one of the people who was all over that. And he's pitched for teams that we hate. So that's another reason that Astros fans don't like him. But he's a good starting pitcher, and you could probably get him cheap right now because nobody wants to sign him. Nobody wants the media headache that they think is going to come with that. Now, the Astros they've done that before. And right now, what's happened to Trevor Bauer is still allegedly. The Astros signed a guy in Ozuna that they knew was guilty of beating up his girlfriend. And they did that in the midst of a cheating scandal. So maybe it's just the money. I'm not sure. I was talking to my good friend Brian, excuse me, Brian Smith. We had lunch the other day. We were talking Astros, and I told him I don't think that Jim Crane would say this out loud, but I don't think he wants to spend any more money, like at all. I mean, obviously, because he had a chance to get Blake Snell, passed on that. Jordan Montgomery, they passed on that. Like, I think this dude doesn't want to spend any more money, and he wouldn't say this out loud, but I think he's okay not winning a World Series for a few years. I mean, he's gotten the grace of all of us anyway. He's gone to the World Series 3 times, won it twice. So, yeah, I don't think he has any incentive to spend any more money on this team. I think we get what we get, and we don't throw a fit. The Astros will probably do what they normally do. They'll reassess at the deadline. Justin Verlander, if he comes back and he's Justin Verlander, then that's a big boost in the arm. We'll see what happens with Lance McCullers Jr. We'll see what happens with Urquidy. I mean, there's a chance that the Astros will still be okay on the starting pitching front. We'll see what happens tomorrow with Javier, but we'll keep an eye on that. But I would say right now, state of the Astros is still strong. What do you say we talk about the state of the Houston Rockets? I don't know why I let my voice get really deep every time I switch subjects. The state of the Houston Rockets. Anywho, the Rockets have won 10 in a row. They just beat the OKC Thunder. Now, SGA wasn't there. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, for those of you who are not that into sports, that is the OKC Thunder's best player. He was not there, but still, this is a game that the Astros, excuse me, this is a game that the Rockets would lose 20 times over in the past. It was a road game. In this 10-game winning streak, they've actually won, 5 or 6 on the road? Like, all of a sudden, they're good at home and on the road. That boy Jalen Green, a.k.a. Hemi Neutron, a.k.a. Him Carey, a.k.a. Himbo Fisher, Captain Him T. Kirk, dropped 37 points, had 10 rebounds, 7 assists. And the assists was the part that was impressive to me. Because we all know the dude can score, even though he's been inconsistent. But the fact that he was scoring to a level where he was drawing double teams, he was drawing traps, and he was making the right pass to the right place. That corner 3 at the end of regulation before going to overtime, when Jalen drove to the basket, pulled the defense in, kicked it out in the corner to Jabari Smith. I mean, that was beautiful. And dare I say, Tracy McGrady-esque. I mean, the whole game, like, I'm telling you right now, excuse me, sorry. I didn't mean for the audio to cut out. JG is that dude, man. And it's got people asking the question, a silly question, are the Rockets better without Alperen Şengün? Is there anybody here who thinks that the Rockets are better without Alperen Şengün? Is any team better without a dude who is on the verge of becoming a perennial all-star? I don't think so. I can't imagine that they're better. But I said in last week's show that Ime Udoka, this is the reason they hired him. You got to figure out a way. That block was nasty, by the way. You have to figure out a way to get Jalen Green and Alperen Şengün to play well together. Period. Like, you don't just, I've seen so many people, let's trade Alperen Şengün to Brooklyn for Claxton. What? Listen, I think everybody already calls Şengün Baby Jokic. I think it would be, first of all, this 10-game winning streak, they had won 3 or 4 games with Alperen Şengün on the court, and Jalen Green was playing well. And that was the disappointing part about Şengün hurting himself, is they were just starting to cook. Like, they were just starting to come around and really get things going. So I think, and it's possible that Şengün will be coming back from his injury early while the season still goes. And listen, we're still a game behind Golden State. So I think we could use Alperen Şengün. We could use Tari Eason. I'll get to him in a little bit. We could use Cam Whitmore. Like, it's the coach's job to figure out. And I just think because we had a 10-game winning streak without Alperen Şengün, I think it is a little bit overreactionary to say, oh, we got to get rid of him. The Rockets can't be good with him and Jalen Green playing together. That's nonsense. They have an opportunity to be a very dynamic duo. And listen, I'm not a basketball coach. I don't know all the X's and O's. I think floor spacing has probably been a little bit of a problem because Şengün does like to play with his back to the basket and close at times. But he's good at doing other things. Like, you can play him at the top of the key as a distributor, very similar to the way Denver does with Jokic. Or you could even stagger their minutes to where when Jalen Green is resting, you're going down to LP in the post and letting him cook. And then when Şengün is resting, you let Jalen come in and play with the second unit, or vice versa. Like, there's ways they can make this work. And it's far too soon to be like, oh, they can't play together. It's very overreactionary, which you as a Houston sports fan, a lot of you are very, very prone to be overreactionary. And that is why I, president of Houston Sports Nation, am here to give you some perspective, to say, let's just calm down. Let's not overreact. If the Rockets, and I said this last week, if the Rockets make the play-in this year, they're ahead of schedule. I did not expect them to make the play-in. I thought they would fall just short, and that still might happen. We'll see. That game against Golden State is going to be huge. Huge. It's going to be a huge game. And that's why, let me get back to Tari Eason. This fool. Tari Eason was not playing last night. He hasn't been playing for a while because of whatever this weird leg injury that he has. But you would know that based on his reaction after the game.
Warriors, come out to play! Warriors, come out to play! Yeah, it's like that.
That was an accident. Tari, we're 71, 72 games into the season, I think. And you've played 22 games more than I have. And you want to go poke Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, 4-time champions, members of the greatest dynasty we've seen in basketball since the Bulls, maybe the Lakers. That's who you want to poke the bear at? Dude, we play them in a couple of weeks. Your ass better hope that you're dressed for that game. Because you're talking all this smack. You're calling out these 4-time champions. And if you're not even on the court, like, are you crazy, bro? Are you crazy? You're going to get, Draymond Green's going to come out there and kick all your teammates in the nuts. And you're going to be sitting on the bench like, oh, man, that's messed up. You're going to be making somebody hold you back as if you're going to do something with your broke-ass leg. Come on, bro. Like, I love you. You're a baller. When you're on the court, you're a difference maker. And I hope that you get on the court sooner than later. I don't know if you're going to be back this season or if you're going to rest it up. I would prefer you rest up, come back next season strong. I think you could be a great 6-man. But with all due respect, my brother, please shut the up. Please. Like, we've seen this story before. Chris Paul, James Harden, Daryl Morey. They used to talk crap to the Warriors too, Oh, this is our year. We were built to beat the Warriors. Bro, let me remind you that the Rockets in 2019 and in 2018, I'm sorry, in 2019, the Rockets had double-digit leads on the Warriors. Like, not just double-digit. They were up by 20 in Game 6 and 7. And say what you will about the officiating. It's fine, bro. Like, say what you will. I think the officiating was bad. But Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and at the time, KD, who's no longer on the team. But that doesn't matter, man. These dudes are about that life. And they have pride. And here you are on a team that has been the worst team in basketball for the last 4 years. You're barely in the 11th spot right now. And you're hot. I get it. But, bro, you're not even playing. I know you're listening, Tari. I know you're here. I know you're listening, bro. You're probably a big fan of the show, right? I'm sure. Listen, man, if there's one bear I do not want to poke, it is the Golden State Warriors. Now, I don't want the Rockets to be scared of them. Don't get me wrong. You walk up in that building and you expect to win. That's the swagger you got to have if you want to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. But don't give them any motivation. You know what I mean? That's a game in Houston, man. You know what you should do, Tari? Especially since you're not playing. You should call Draymond. You should call Steph. You should call Klay and be like, hey, man, y'all want to go out tonight? Y'all got a day off before the game? Man, why don't you come out? Let me show y'all around town. Let me take you to all the nice spots around town. Let's go to Treasures. You know what I'm saying? Let's go get some barbecue and get busy. Like, that's what you should be doing. Like, make them relax. Make them feel comfortable. And then on game day, cut their throats, man. That's what you're supposed to do. Don't give them bulletin board material. I'm sure they don't have a bulletin board. I'm aging myself. I'm sure they don't have a bulletin board. But still, man, like, come on, dude. Not the Warriors. That is not, that's not what we're doing. Okay. But the Rockets, they have a game against Utah coming up. Is it tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow we got NBA and NCAA basketball. They are playing Utah tomorrow, and then they have to play Dallas, which is going to be a big game. And then I think they have the Warriors after that. So they have a tough schedule coming up. Can they make the play-in? I most certainly hope that they can and that they will, but only time will tell. Let's see. I'll tell you what, before I hit the state of the Houston Cougars, I'm going to take a short break. I will be right back. Okay, I am back. I apologize. Me having to restart the stream, like, There's a bunch of people texting me like, where's the show? Are you live? I can't see it. I promise you this is the last time that's going to happen. It's really frustrating, and I do apologize. I appreciate everybody who's still here, everybody who's hanging around. Apparently the YouTube video has been private for half of this show, so it's public now. I appreciate it, guys. And baby steps, man. Baby steps. We will we will get this thing figured out. That's for sure. All right. Let's go ahead really quick and do the state of the Houston Cougars. All right, the Houston Cougars are in the Sweet 16 for the 4th year in a row and the 16th time in their history. Maybe the 16th time is the charm. If they want to get to the championship game for their first time since 1984, when the year I was born, then they're going to have to beat a program that has won 5 NCAA championships in the Duke Blue Devils. Now, that sounds scary because it's Duke, right? But this isn't your grandfather's Duke. Coach Krzyzewski is gone. And it's been a while since they've gotten those top tier one and dones. And Houston is actually favored to win this game by 4 points. I think it should be more than 4 points, but it's Duke. And I think people just have a hard time imagining Houston beating Duke because it's Duke. But times have changed in college basketball, man. It's just, like I said, it's not your father's college basketball anymore. I told you guys last week I don't watch a ton of college basketball, but here's what I do know. I said it last week. If the Cougars want to win, they got to score. And when they got in trouble against Texas A&M, it was when they couldn't score. Now, they're very physical on defense. They can't not be physical on defense. I think the officiating in that game was absolutely horrible. Literally 4 of the 5 starters fouled out of the game. And somehow Houston still hung on and won. They only have one ball handler, and that's Jamal Shed, their senior point guard, who, whenever they're trapping, like, they don't have anybody else who can get out of that trap. And so when he fouled out, I was really nervous. There's this weird thing about college basketball. And I talked about this a little last week. Like, they run the same offensive sets they've been running since the 50s. Very little man-to-man defense. It's usually zone, which means there's a lot of outside shots. And most college players just aren't really good shooters. There's a few really good shooters in college. So the game, it is hard to watch, but this game was entertaining. I do like watching college football in March. It was very entertaining. It was a close game, weird game in the fact that I think Houston had a 13-point lead with like a minute and a half to go, and somehow Texas A&M tied the game and took it to overtime. I think what kills college football, lack of shooting on all levels. There's not a lot of good 3-point shooters. The free throw shooting in this game was horrible. Like, if Texas A&M just made a couple of free throws, they probably would have won this game. But Houston wasn't great at the free throw line either. Hey, there's my man CJ. CJ, I got to apologize to you, brother. So what happened is my original stream crashed, and I thank you so much for joining me, man. You could be doing anything right now. It didn't crash, but it was not working well. So I had to restart, and when I restarted, I accidentally made the YouTube video. It's not that I accidentally made it private. When I was practicing to make sure that my streams wouldn't mess up, I had it private so that people couldn't see the practice, and I forgot to switch it back from private to public. It's really embarrassing to admit to you, bro. I've been podcasting for 5 years now. Like, I really shouldn't be having these problems, but It is what it is, brother. It's a great day. It's opening day. We're talking sports. But I did talk about Framber Valdez, and we can get back to it. I did a show last week too, man. I told everybody, like, I'm worried about Framber Valdez. He had a 7.71 ERA in the spring training, and now it's 5 point something. So that's an improvement, dude. He's better than he was in spring training. But after this show is done, CJ, if you want to go back and watch the beginning, I did the state of the Astros, the state of the Rockets. Unfortunately, the show is starting to wind down a little bit, but I'm still talking Houston Cougars basketball. You and I talked about it a little bit while we were at work. I don't know if the refs. I could see where it felt like the refs were favoring the Aggies. I think that Houston is just a really physical basketball team, and if you're going to call ticky-tack fouls, then that's what's going to happen. Like, but that's how Houston plays, man. They're some rough riders, man. They bump you, they get offensive rebounds, they get into you, and I didn't agree. The problem I have is that, and I talked to you about this, the foul that put Cryer out of the game, who Cryer and Sharp are Houston's two best shooters. Those dudes have to play well. The deeper they get into this tournament, those dudes have to be on the floor and they have to play well. But the foul that got Cryer out of the game, it's the number one rule in basketball, right? Don't foul a shooter. When you contest, don't foul a shooter. But I'm sorry, the shot was gone out of his hand probably 2 seconds. He'd already done his follow through, and Cryer barely grazes his fingertip. You cannot call that. And that was a 3-point play. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think he made all 3 free throws. He might have missed one. I don't know. They were terrible at free throws. If they made a couple of free throws, they probably win that game. And we're having a much different conversation on this show, talking about the Houston Cougars and how they're starting to have a legacy of falling short. But they're still in it. They have a chance. Tip-off is tomorrow in Dallas at 8:39. That is a weird time for tip-off. But yeah, they're favored by 4 points. I don't know. Are you a betting man, CJ? What do you say? Does anybody think that they can cover 4? I think they're going to cover 4. I think they're only favored by 4 because it's Duke. Now, Duke can score. Don't get me wrong. And that's why I'm going to say it again. U of H has got to score the basketball. They've got to score. They're going to defend. They're going to get offensive rebounds. They're going to get putbacks. The reason they get a lot of offensive rebounds is because they miss a lot of shots. But if Cryer and Sharp can get going, I think they can beat anybody in the country. And I think they have a chance to make it to the Final Four again. CJ says the next game is going to be a test. 100%. I knew Texas A&M was going to be a test. If anybody watched that game back in December, Texas A&M was no joke. And they got really hot in the SEC tournament. I knew that they were going to be a problem. I didn't think they were going to be a problem to the point where you have a 10, 12-point lead with a minute and a half left and you still lose it. Apparently in college, like that half court or that full court trap, that full court press, if you don't have a really good ball handler, which, like I said before, Houston only has one, and Jamal Shed. And once he was out of the game, dude, I was scared. I'm not gonna lie. That was a very stressful basketball game to watch. My father would probably argue not as stressful as 1983, 1984 championships games versus Georgetown and NC State. I was just the apple of his eye back then, so I wouldn't know. But yeah, that was a stressful game, and Jamal Shed cannot be in foul trouble. That's for sure, because there's nobody else on the team that can handle the ball. And I think that Sharp fouled out of the game, and Cryer. That can't happen. Not against Duke. They got to be on the floor and they got to score if they want to make it to the Final Four and hopefully the championship game. I want to see them do it. I definitely want to see them do it. All right, real quick, there's not a lot of Texans news, but let's get into the state of the Texans. All right, I talked about this a little bit last week. Nick Caserio's feeling himself, man, and he traded away their first this year to Minnesota for a second this year, and I believe a second next year. So they have 2 second-round picks, and for me, that was disappointing. Now, I'm just your average Joe. I'm a fan. I'm not a draft guru. I'm not an expert in that regard. But I thought first round, after they went so heavily on defense and free agency, and I believe they killed it in free agency, it just seemed like the next course of action was obvious. Take a wide receiver in the first round. And they, at least right now, it doesn't look like they're going to do that. Now, maybe they take their 2 seconds and they move up at some point. Who knows? But I think that Nick Caserio knows that he's gained himself a little bit of leeway. He's got his belt's not so tight. Now that the Texans have had a winning season and won their division and made the playoffs, and they've made some really good signings that at the time, I don't think anybody expected Dalton Schultz would be as good of a signing as it was. So, they finessed the trade and got Joe Mixon when they lost out on Saquon and some of the other guys. So 100% Nick Caserio, and he's been doing this a lot longer than me because I've never done it. So I'm just a fan. All I'm saying is it felt like the natural course of action was find your wide receiver to go opposite of Nico Collins, and let's tear the league up next year. Well, maybe they're still going to do that. I don't know. Maybe they know something that we don't. I was looking at the latest NFL.com mock draft, and they have the Texans taking Kool-Aid McKinstry, who is a cornerback out of Alabama. I don't watch a lot of Alabama football because I don't like Alabama football. But corner is interesting. The draft expert that was doing this mock draft said Kool-Aid McKinstry is one of those will be a solid starter in a couple of years. I guess that's what you want out of a second round player. I mean, the Texans had the 23rd pick, and I believe you drafted DeAndre Hopkins number 25. Maybe it was 27. It was 20 something where you got DeAndre Hopkins, and there's about four or five wide receivers in the draft that you probably would be able to get. My man CJ says that dude is a beast. You're talking about Kool-Aid? Man, now that I've seen him in the mock draft, I'm definitely going to watch some film on him and see what he looks like. I mean, look, the Texans, I think they want to have a historically good defense. And obviously you have a defensive coach like D'Amico Ryans. That's what he wants to do. He wants to kill people on defense. And I don't blame him, man. I mean, look at what the Ravens defense did to the Texans. I mean, the Texans were a really good offensive team last year. And then in the playoffs, they did not score an offensive touchdown against the Ravens. So in the very next game, the MVP went up against a good defense, and he did not win that game because I guess the old adage, defense wins championships, may still ring true. I don't know, man. We'll see. I meant to write this down. I'm not sure when the draft is, but I'll be curious to see. Maybe we'll do like a little online draft party or something, man. And we'll give everybody a chance to pick who they think the Texans should pick in the draft. All right, looking at the chat, my man Rom's in the building. He said defense definitely wins games. I don't disagree with that. And CJ says the Texans defense is going to be a problem next season. I don't disagree with that either, man. I was surprised at how big of a problem the defense was this year. And this was crazy. I kind of expected D'Amico kind of put this defense together based on who was on the team, brought in some guys, but I don't think anybody expected Cashman to do what Cashman did. And after Cashman had the season that he had, thought, okay, it's obvious you bring him back, right? No, let's up the ante. You know, they go for Azir, Ashish. Dude, I got to practice these names. Otherwise, people are going to be like, this dude's an idiot. But no, they upgraded linebacker. They upgraded defensive end. They upgraded defensive tackle. Like, they did not rest on their laurels, which is a good thing because Texans teams of the past would have been like, let's just run it back with these guys. We almost got there. No, that's not what we want to do. If the Texans are going to get somewhere they've never been before, which is the AFC Championship game even, I like that they're putting it all on the line and they're going for it. So the state of the union in Houston remains good. The Astros have a chance to bounce back tomorrow. The Rockets are on fire. Jalen Green seems to be that dude. I just wish he would wear a condom. We always do a little bit of outside the lines, right? Just really quick. Apparently, Jalen Green allegedly may have impregnated 2 other women besides Drea Michelle. And that might be why that dude is playing the way he is. He probably started doing the math, and it wasn't mathing with the paycheck he's making right now. And he's like, dude, if you have 3 kids before you turn 23, you're going to need that max contract, my guy. You're going to need it. Too bad Maury's not still on TV, man, because I would be double checking if I were you. 100%. 100% I'd be double checking that. But no, the Rockets are in a good spot. The Cougars have become a perennial contender, at least as far as getting to the Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final 4. Can they finally break the threshold, get to the championship game? I think they have as good of a shot as anybody. But once again, it's that offense that's got to shine. All right, guys, that is the State of the Union address for the week of March 24. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I want to remind you really quick of the ways that you can support the show. First of all, what you're doing right now. I apologize once again for the technical difficulties and that you had to go look for the show rather than it come to you. I promise you that will be fixed next week. We will not have this problem again. The tip jar, if you guys want to leave me a tip, it's right there in the corner. There's also a link in the description of the video that you're watching on YouTube, Facebook. If you're listening on the audio side, the audio for this podcast will be available on Spotify, Apple, on Amazon Music, YouTube Music, anywhere that you listen to your podcast normally. This podcast will also be available there. There's some affiliate links. I've got some Houston fan gear in there. I've also got podcast equipment, all of the podcast equipment that I'm using to bring you this wonderful show. If you're interested in podcasting yourself and you want to know, hey, what's he using? I have the Amazon links there. And if you guys buy anything with those links, I'm going to get myself just a little bitty cut of it. And any money that you guys give to me and donate to this show is going straight back into the show and to bring you guys more good content. Now, do I even want to bring up? I'm not going to bring up sponsorship right now. I got to do better than what I'm doing right now before we start talking sponsorship. But I do appreciate everybody who's reached out for sponsorship. I promise you, I will continue to get better at this. As the president of Houston Sports Nation, I think it's important that you know your weaknesses and that you improve upon those weaknesses. And I'm treating this thing with all seriousness, and I'm being honest with you about my flaws, but I will fix them. I assure you. All right, guys. So I'm going to see you guys next week on Thursday, 7 o'clock. I will promote, but I'm not going to schedule an event ahead of time because that has created problems. But 7 o'clock Thursday next week, Facebook, Twitter. I am also on Twitch and I am on YouTube. We're going to be live. We're going to do the show and it's going to go smoothly. I am speaking this into existence. In the meantime, guys, I want you to stay 10 toes down for H-Town. I love you. I'll see you next week.
This has been the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast, hosted by Nick Stevenson. Tune in next week for more news and analysis of your favorite Houston teams. Please follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, the app formerly known as Twitter, if that's even really still a thing. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content.